Let's call to order. It's the Brainerd City Council. It's February 18th, 2025, 7:30 p.m. Council chambers. And Tony, will you please call the roll?
Erickson.
Here.
Bevins.
Here.
Chezak. Johnson.
Here.
Stunek.
Here.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Here.
Badeau.
Please rise for the national anthem. Pledge of allegiance. But if anybody wants to sing the national anthem, now is the time. All right. Next, we have approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Stunek. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. We have an agenda. Next, we have the consent calendar. This is a notice to public that all matters listed are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
Move to adopt. Second, Johnson.
Motion by Bevins, second by Johnson. Tony, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes. That motion passes. Next, we're moving to public forum. This is time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Time limits may be imposed. So it is 7:31. I will open the public forum. If anyone's here to address the council about anything that's not on the agenda, please step forward. Again, if anyone is here to address the council on anything that's not on the agenda, please step forward. Oh, I thought Stunek was gonna for a second.
I was gonna.
Yeah, you were thinking about it? Yeah. And if anyone's online that wants to address the council, please press *3. One more time, if anyone is here, please step forward. With that, we will close the public forum at 7:32 p.m. Up next, we have number 7A. This is council committee reports. Personnel and Finance Committee Chairman Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have two items, the first of which is discussion on a municipal dispensary partnership. And the motion is to have staff collect written proposals from interested parties to be a partner in a municipal dispensary operation, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Mr. Johnson.
So this isn't necessarily applying for the municipal license. This isn't moving forward to go ahead and do it. But because there's people promising profit sharing and that they'll manage all the operations, we want to see written, black and white on paper, what people are proposing before we make a decision to move forward or not. So we're going to have any interested party submit to us. And I guess we didn't put a timeline on that, but I suppose let's give them till like
2030.
2030. Yeah, these guys don't want it at all. This is as far as I can get them. So I say let's give them till like April 30th to get a proposal to us. That wasn't part of the motion, but
Yeah, I don't think there's any rush on anything like this, but there's, whether we want to do it or not is not part of the motion. It's just
yep.
hearing out from,
We have had people reach out to us who want to partner with the city. Let's see what they're willing to write down that they're going to do.
okay? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. Oh, Mr. Kremvik, sorry.
Yeah, so I have spoken to a few of these groups from a staff perspective, probably recommend more something along the lines of a 30-day. I think time is somewhat of the essence for them to, want to partner with the municipality because of the issuance of the municipal license. So that'd be staff recommendation, would probably be like 30 days.
That's fair. I support that.
30 days from today, or 30 days from when it opens?
30 days from today.
30 days from today, okay? Any discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Final item is interest on deferred assessments. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Kelly, but the motion out of committee was to assess interest on deferred assessments for 30 years and make sure that all assessments are paid at the transfer or sale of a piece of land, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Mr. Johnson?
This has come up, our deferred assessments have come up a number of times the last year or so, and it's the committee's opinion that if people are going to hold on these assessments for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, there should be some type of financial incentive to make them pay. So the most we can charge is 30 years of interest, so we're going to continue to charge interest until it's paid. Otherwise, they'll be paying, just because of the time value of money, if they pay 20 years down the road, they're really paying half of what they should have paid for the project cost when it was done.
Okay. Is this just for annexing properties that are hooking up to sewer and water?
Well, the motion was direct staff to amend the assessment policy and bring it back to us, so.
More
So to answer
details?
your question, that would be no.
Okay,
This would be anybody, like on Beaver Dam, anybody who hooked up we gave the option, and this was partially to get the project approved, the option for eternal assessment deferment. You could hook up to the sewer and water and defer forever, and it was some confusion as to what our policy was. Our finance department thought it was you would charge interest only for the term of the bond. But we've had people, Chairman Johnson had an instance where somebody deferred their assessment over 50 years. And they only paid interest for the first 7, or forever how long the bond was. And that just isn't fair to the people who paid their assessment.
okay.
So if you don't want to pay your assessment, fine. If you're going to defer it, fine, but it's going to cost you, there'll be some time value of money.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Mr. Johnson?
End of report.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Next, we have 7B, Safety and Public Works Committee Chairman Tad Erickson.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. We have 5 items on our agenda tonight, the first of which is direction on active code enforcement. We have one property for the council to consider. That's 113 Washington Street Northeast. Staff became aware there was a resident occupying in a residential use in a commercially zoned building, and that was verified through a police incident report. And motion coming out of committee is to pursue legal action with the city attorney per staff's recommendation.
Motion?
And I so move, thank you.
Second.
Motion by Erickson, second by Bevins. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Mr. Erickson?
All right, thank you, Mr. President. The second item is to approve reduce Brainerd's same-day fare for transit. Motion coming out of committee is to approve staff's recommendation to reduce same-day fare from $6 to $5, and I so move.
We have a motion by Erickson. Do we have a second, Mr. Yeager?
Second.
All right. Motion by Erickson, second by Yeager. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Mr.
I'll just provide a little commentary on this one. So early on in the year, the Transit Department had some significant challenges. However, they did end the year with positive net revenue, enough so that they were able to put money in reserves, potentially make some investments in software, and this recommendation of reducing the same-day fare, again, from $6 to $5.
Thank you. That was going to be my question. This is including our next item that's about to come up. Okay. Any more discussion? No discussion. Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes. Chairman Erickson.
All right, thank you. Our third item is to authorize solicitation of requests for qualifications for transit software. Motion coming out of committee is to approve staff's recommendation to solicit a request for qualifications purchase and implementation for the transit technology software. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by Erickson, second by Yeager. Any more discussion? Mr. Erickson?
Yeah, just another note on this, as was mentioned, so there was a net revenue in the transit department such that they can put money in reserves, make this request for reinvesting into their software, which is currently quite antiquated. Staff noted that staff is having to manually do entries, manually schedule, and do dispatching. And our current software is so outdated that there's no updates forthcoming for it.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Again, Chairman Erickson.
All right, item number 4 is to discuss construction procurement program through Sourcewell. Motion coming out of committee is to recommend council authorize utilization of the Sourcewell construction procurement program for the upcoming library exterior and mechanical repairs project. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by Erickson, second by Yeager. More discussion?
Yeah, so just mention too, so any construction project, the city has options for how they want to procure bids, whether, they go a low bid process or through other options. And if we don't do a low bid option, going through this route would give us some additional protections and some additional options for realizing cost savings and time savings by utilizing a program through Sourcewell, where they've kind of done a lot of the pre-bidding for a lot of contractors. And we had a really good presentation from Gordian, who's the contractor through Sourcewell, and provided us a lot of good information. And I suspect there might be some additional discussion.
Mr. Yeager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so there was a fairly robust discussion about this particular item here. Essentially what this does is breaks down 99% of the project into fixed unit pricing. So there's a set price to replace a door, there's a set price to replace a light fixture, and so forth. With this system of approach, the scope is identified by those seeking the scope as well as those providing collectively as one collaborative team to then bring that project to a marketplace and then establish a base price of which we would follow moving forward as our scope of work, as well as the compensation for that scope of work moving forward as it progresses along its path. So I had a lot of questions because there are advantages and disadvantages that I can see to this system. So the motion that I ultimately made was to go ahead and implement this system based upon the recommendation of staff on just the library project and really see how it fleshes out and works for us on a relatively modest project. But it would give us a chance to just have our thumb on the pulse of this moving forward and see if it is a good fit with other projects, because there are certainly some advantages to be had for us, again, protection-wise as well as risk mitigation. So that was the motion coming out. So,
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Any more discussion? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I support this motion to try this out and check out what cost savings or efficiencies that may be found. But I will just say that if we find cost savings or efficiencies, I really don't want to see adding on a bunch of projects or random other parking lot repavings or things like that because we have leftover money. This is for the library mechanical. Let's get the library mechanical done and not just try to spend $426,000 as fast as we possibly can.
Okay. I think this motion is just specifically for this one project. So I think going forward, if we want this, and I'm just trying to make this clear as a question maybe for you guys, going forward, if we want to use this program again, is this going to come in front of the council to be approved going forward from there on other projects? Is that the intent?
go ahead. Yes. Yeah. So the motion was not to put this in place for in perpetuity, but exclusively on the upcoming library exterior and mechanical project only. And then I think we would reassess. I'll be looking at this construction background. I'll be watching this pretty closely and asking questions along the way to really be able to come back to you guys with just how I feel it's going on this project alone, and then maybe we can reassess if this is a good fit for future projects. So I think it's a this is a good project to kind of fret out if the system is a good fit.
I agree. I think Sourcewell is an organization that provides a lot of really good services for a lot of organizations just like us, so this is a perfect opportunity to test it out. So I'm in agreement. Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes. Again, Chairman Erickson.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Our fifth and final item is to approve WSB amendment request to Lowell Safe Routes to School. Motion coming out of committee. This one, there was no motion coming out of committee. And there's only two of us in the committee. One member was out sick, so there was a motion to deny this. It failed for lack of a second, and therefore it's going to come to the main council agenda. And so with that, I guess, could we have Mr. Habergorst?
Hand it over to Mr. Habergorst. Yeah, Mr. Habergorst, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project already came before the council and it was approved regarding this safe route, putting in a median and narrowing the streets down. But then after thinking about the project a little bit more, Jesse and I, we were talking, Jesse came with an idea of, because we're putting in some trees there, how neat would it be to add some Christmas lights, add some flair to that neighborhood, to really just add some beauty of Christmas lights just driving down the road. So that's really what it is. It's a low price tag for us to add some amenities in that neighborhood, and we thought it was a good idea. But again, we're looking for your guidance, and if there's something at this price tag, if it's a good fit for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Habergorst. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Johnson.
With the $2,317, it obviously isn't a lot of money, but that's just for WSB's time to design it. How much do we foresee this adding to the total project cost?
Based on the engineer's estimate, it's maybe about $1,500. As of right now, we're intending that to be an eligible expense because it's not limited to any specific use. This could be additional safety enhancements as well.
So it costs more to design
Yep.
than build it? I love engineers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any more discussion? So really, this is about getting electricity into the median. Do we have any other medians in the city that we have outlets run like this? None? Okay. I could see this being something like on College Drive as well. Obviously, we're not going to rip up a street to run wires under it, but I can see the advantage. This is a project also that it's a state aid or state grant money that's providing for it. So this isn't coming out of taxpayer dollars in the city of Brainerd necessarily. This is still under budget. We're not over budget on anything on this, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair. We are within budget, even with this add-on.
How much are the Christmas lights?
Yeah, who's paying for the Christmas lights?
I heard Dave might be providing those.
Dave's doing it. All right. He's putting cookies out there.
The mayor's contingency fund may be tapped finally.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion when you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Bevins.
I move to approve the WSB amendment request in the amount of $2,317 for engineering only.
Second.
A motion by Bevins, second by Stunek. Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. And Chairman Erickson?
End of report, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Erickson. We are moving on to number 8. This is unfinished business. 8A is a call for applicants. First, we'll let the mayor talk.
Absolutely. It's about time. The following positions are available with the city with our boards and commissions. You can find that information on our website. The Charter Commission, 2 terms expiring 2025, 2 terms expiring 2026. Library Board, 1 term expiring 2027. Transportation Advisory Committee, 2 terms expiring 2026. As well as, and I don't know, because we never put it on here, but the Water Tower Commission. Do we know who that is? Is that myself or is that Mike? We'll figure it out. We also have some spots on the Water Tower Committee as well.
Thank you. As president, I have 1 term open for the Airport Commission expiring in 2027. It says 1 term, but it's actually 2 terms for the Planning Commission expiring 2027. And I would like to appoint tonight or nominate.
Can I ask, Mr. Chair, to separate these?
Separate.
You're going to make more than one recommendation?
Well, I'm not making the motion. Somebody else will make the motion. But yeah, we can do one at a time.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, all right.
All right.
I see what you're saying.
I would like to appoint Jeremy Powell to the Planning Commission.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Next, I'd like to appoint Blake Higgins to the Planning Commission.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Any discussion? None, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes as well. Moving on to 8B, we have a final reading and proposed ordinance 1579, amending sections 1200 and 1500. I think this is Mr. Kramvik. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So administration reviewed the city code to ensure that we had proper licensing in place for a brew pub. Minor changes are needed, as well as some cleanup to items in sections 1200 and 1500. So with that, staff does recommend to conduct the final reading of proposed ordinance 1579 and dispense with the actual reading. Note, a vote to dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance must be unanimous. Second, to hold a public hearing. And third, adoption of proposed ordinance 1579.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Does anybody have any questions of staff first? If there's no questions of staff, then we're looking for a motion to conduct the final reading of proposed ordinance 1579 and dispense with the actual reading.
So move, Johnson.
Second? Bevins?
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. And now we're gonna hold a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing at 7:52. If anyone is here to speak for or against this ordinance, please step up and do so now. If anyone is online, please press star 3 if you'd like to address the council on this. And again, if anyone is in here and wants to address the council, please step up now. Looks like not, so we will close the public hearing at 7:52. Next, we're looking to adopt the proposed ordinance 1579, amending sections 1200 and 1500 of the Brainerd City Code. Looking for that in a motion?
Move, Johnson.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any discussions? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President.
Oh, I missed the first one.
Almost made it.
I thought I was gonna get all these. This is a resolution, so go ahead and call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes?
Johnson.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes, that motion passes. Moving on, we have new business. 9A is a consideration of development agreement with Country Manor Campus, Brainerd LLC, and cost share agreement with Crow Wing County. This is again, Community Development Director James Kramvik. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So staff has included a cost share agreement with Crow Wing County for the installation of a turn lane on Beaver Dam Road. According to the cost share agreement, Crow Wing County will pay for 25% of the construction costs that will be paid to the city of Brainerd and then reimbursed to the developer. At the February 3rd City Council meeting, Council approved an amended plan unit development for Country Manor, a delayed payment structure for certain fees, and a tax abatement request for the project. Section 15 of the development agreement details the pay structure for delayed payments that was approved by City Council. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the cost share agreement with Crow Wing County. Second, to approve the development agreement with Country Manor Campus Brainerd LLC contingent upon execution of the cost share agreement. This was reviewed by Brainerd City Attorney, Bond Counsel, as well as Country Manor staff, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. One clarification. You have two parts to this. You want two separate motions, one being contingent? Or would you like one motion with both of those contingent?
So I would say two separate motions. The reason staff put contingent upon execution, so execution would be signed by both the county as well as the city, because the development agreement states that the city will pay 25%. So from a staff perspective, I'd like to see the executed agreement with the county done, you know, and then have that contingency on there in the development agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Any other questions of staff? No other questions? If not, we're looking for an approval of the cost share agreement with Crow Wing County.
So, second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Yeager. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Next, we are looking to approve the development agreement with Country Manor Campus Brainerd LLC, contingent upon execution of the cost share agreement.
Move approval, Johnson.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Erickson. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to 9B. This is a resolution looking to adopt and calling a public hearing on issuing conduit debt. Again, this is supposed to be James Kramvik. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the city has been requested to issue conduit debt for the Country Manor project. There is a statutory process to do so, and one that requires the city to hold a public hearing. The attached resolution was prepared by bond counsel and reviewed by staff. So this resolution is calling for the public hearing on March 17th. It's not a resolution approving the conduit debt. So with that, staff recommends to adopt the attached resolution calling for a public hearing regarding the issuance of conduit revenue bonds for the benefit of Country Manor Campus LLC and providing preliminary approval of the issuance.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Kramvik? Otherwise, we're looking to adopt that.
Approve Bevins.
Second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Johnson. Any more discussion? This is a resolution. Have Tony call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Stunek.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yep.
O'Day.
Yes. That resolution passes. Next, we have 9C. 9C is a public hearing and a resolution ordering improvements and ordering preparation of plans for improvement 1712 Wright and 10th Street reconstruction project. I believe this is presenter Mike Habgorst, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we're on step 3 of this 5-step process, and we are asking the council to approve for a hearing and hear testimony from the public. This project is going to be including the replacement of curb and gutter, water main, storm sewer catch basin, and pavement improvements. And again, this is just one of the process, so we're just looking for us to approve moving forward with improvements and hearing from the public, and then also improvement to prepare our plans for bid.
Thank
And
you,
on
Mr.
that, I'll
Habgorst.
take any questions.
Mr. Habgorst, did we typically used to do these hearings outside of council meetings prior to this year? I don't
I'm not
recall
sure.
doing them in here. I thought we usually did like a community meeting.
Yes, I can't. Jesse?
The informational meeting, which was more of an informal meeting, we would hold separately, which we did for these two projects. But the public hearing, that is required to be before council.
Excellent. Okay. Looks like we can just open the public hearing, right? I don't need a motion. With that, we will open the public hearing at 7:58. So if anybody's here to speak on the project for Wright Street and 10th Street reconstruction, please come forward.
So Precision Tool Technologies has.
Sir, I'll have you come up to the microphone.
Yep.
And make sure the green button or the green light is on, and then just name and address or organization.
From Precision Tool Technologies, 924 Wright Street.
Your name?
Dylan Paulson.
Thank you.
So we have concerns with having only one driveway that semis and employees may have trouble with accessing our parking lot during construction. We are looking into putting a second entrance into the parking lot that would be accessible from 10th South Street. Is the reconstruction project going to be completed in phases, and what does the time frame look like?
Yeah. So tonight's public hearing is more of a for or against the project. So if you have specific questions about the project, those were to be addressed at the informational meeting, which Jesse Dean can help you with any of those questions later on tonight or even tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So I believe the plans are already set. correct, Mr. Dean? But if there's something that absolutely needs to be changed, Mr. Dean can address those with you,
Okay,
just in private.
all right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this project? Again, this is the Wright Street, 10th Street reconstruction. If there's no one else here to speak, and there's no one online, we will then close that public hearing at 8:00 p.m. And we are now looking to adopt the attached resolution in which orders the improvement and preparation of the plans.
So move.
Is that Mr. Yeager? No.
Erickson.
Motion by Erickson,
Johnson.
second by Johnson. Any more discussion?
Stop telling him.
You gotta see if I actually catch it. I got the word highlighted right here. Tony, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes, that resolution passes. Next, we have something similar. We have a public hearing and adopting the resolution ordering improvement and preparation of the plans for improvement 2113 Beach Street, Oak Ridge reconstruction project. Again, this is Public Works Director Mike Abigord.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this one is also on step 3 of step 5s. So step 3, again, like you indicated, we're asking to hear testimony from the public and also preparing approval to prepare the plans. This project, the scope is including curb and gutter, new sidewalk, replacement of the water main and storm sewer utilities, and also asphalt improvement. And we are asking for those, that approval of that testimony from the public and also approval to start preparing the plans. And with that, we can open the hearing or ask any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Habegorst. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Looks like not, so we will open the public hearing at 8:02. Again, this is for the Beach Street Oak Ridge reconstruction project. If anyone is here to address the council on that project, please step forward. If anyone's online and wants to address the council, please press *3. We'll ask one more time if anyone is in here to address the council on the Beach Street Oak Ridge reconstruction project. Yeah, please come on up. Name and address.
Wanda Kuhn, 2315 Kermit Lane, Brainerd. It's maybe not the time to ask a question, but I live at the Meadowview Manor Trailer Court. And when they tear up Beach Street in Oakdale, how do we get in and out of the trailer court? That was our concern of how that's gonna happen. Is there gonna be a,
Yep, you can speak with our
Okay.
engineer,
Okay.
Jesse Dean, right over there. He'll tell you exactly how that's gonna work out.
so that'll
got a good
be
plan.
later tonight again or tomorrow? Or today?
I'm sure he can probably answer that question for you tonight. If not,
Okay.
then for sure by tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Go ahead, come on up. Just name and address before you
My
start.
name is Robin Boyd. I live at 1202 Beach Street, and I recently purchased the house I'm living in, so I didn't attend other meetings. I have a couple of questions. One regarding the trailer park that was just referenced. Are they also being assessed since Beach Street is their primary method of getting into that trailer park, and we have traffic nonstop up and down Beach Street all the time? Or is it only the houses who front Beach Street?
Yeah, that is a good question for staff. This
Yes.
is more of a for or against, you're for the project or against the project when we're in the public hearing part of this, but you can definitely ask our staff.
So a question about the purpose of the sidewalk as well? They're putting a sidewalk all the way down Beach Street on the west side. We have limited foot traffic.
You're against the sidewalk, is what
I
you're
am
saying?
against the sidewalk. Because we have limited foot traffic on Beach Street. It's mostly car traffic.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure what a necessity for a sidewalk is.
We can discuss that also, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here to speak on Beach Street or Oak Ridge? Come on up, sir.
722 Beach Street, Mike Golomsky. Same thing, no sidewalk, it's mainly traffic. And the traffic that we do get does come from the trailer park and at 100 miles an hour. So I'm curious what they're, probably at the time to ask, but what are they gonna do to control that? Like I said, they drive up and down, and I missed last meeting for whatever, but 100 miles an hour generally. And it is from the trailer park, and again, what they're talking about being assessed, that is, there's more houses in that trailer park than there are in our street in general. And I know we're supposed to be paying a percentage of it. How about the people in the trailer park? Because we are their main access.
Thank you, sir. Again, the assessment questions are great questions for our staff here. Also, have you met our police chief? This is John Davis over here.
Yeah, I've talked to them before, and
Okay.
but they never catch the speeders.
Okay, if you have any tips on when our police should keep an eye on that street, he's the
All day
guy.
long.
Okay,
That trailer park it's a highway. It's a speedway from one end to another. It's nonstop.
3 o'clock
Okay.
in the morning.
I do think we are narrowing the street in the project, which should help calm traffic a little bit, because it is very wide right now.
They're doing what, narrowing it?
Yeah.
It's like I said, I missed it.
Maybe then
A
the
lot of
Beach
people
Street
missed it last
residents
time,
can't
so.
leave their cars parked on the street.
We,
okay.
most of the residents in Beach Street
All right.
leave their cars parked on the street.
Anyone else want to come up and address the council? Anyone online, please press *3. All right, if no one else is going to address the council, we will close the public hearing at 8:06. And next, we have number 2, we're looking to adopt the attached resolution, which orders the improvements and preparation of the plans.
So move.
Second, Johnson.
We have motion by Erickson, second by Johnson. Any more discussion? More discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Oh, we're gonna go to Tony to call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes, that resolution passes. All right, next we have another resolution. This is approval of plans and authorization of bidding for improvement 2316 South Brainerd resurfacing project. Again, this is Public Works Director Mike Habegor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This project here with South Brainerd's resurfacing, we're on step 4 of step 5, and this is to resurface the street and some curb replacement and 10 fire hydrants. And again, Boulder and Mink is here if we have any very specific questions. But again, we're on step 4 of this process. We're just approving that we can now go forth with bids and try to and get some good bids for this project. And
Thank
with
you,
that,
Mr.
I can
Habegorst.
take any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Habegorst or staff? If there are no questions, we are looking for a motion to adopt the attached resolution, approving plans and specifications, and ordering advertisement for bids to be opened on March 20th, 2025.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Stunek, second by Erickson. Any more discussion? Tony, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Johnson. Stunek.
Yep.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes, that resolution passes. Next, we have 9F. This is a resolution ordering feasibility report for improvement 2314 Hawkins Ronald Joseph resurfacing project. Again, this is Public Works Director Mike Habegorst.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is on the first stage of our 5-stage process. So we are just asking the council if we can do this study and get the ball rolling on this project. This project is going to be including fire hydrants and a water main in the alley between Joseph and Paul Street. And with that, we can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Habegorst. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Habegorst? No questions? If not, then we're looking for a motion to adopt the attached resolution ordering a feasibility report.
I move adoption, Johnson.
Second, Bevins.
Improvement 2314 Hawkins Ronald Joseph resurfacing project. We have a motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any more discussion? Tony, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Stunek.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes, that resolution passes. Move to 9G. We have a discussion on the orderly annexation of Riverside Drive. I believe this one is for Mr. Kramvik and Mr. Dean. Whoever wants to start.
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Mr. President. I'll start here. So in 2003, the city constructed a utility extension project along Riverside Drive. Based on the 2003 policy for Riverside Drive, staff believed that it was City Council's intention to annex properties along Riverside Drive that have the availability to connect to municipal services, even those outside of city limits. These properties would have been required to connect within 3 years or when their septic systems failed. However, it was later determined that the city could not force annexation through these utility hookups. Staff has held some meetings with Crow Wing County staff regarding the proposed annexation of that portion of Riverside Drive. All properties proposed for annexation are in unorganized first assessment territory. Attached is a map showing these properties highlighted in red. Discussions with the county didn't have any initial concerns, but has not been in front of their board yet. By annexing these properties, the city can require them to hook up to services when their systems fail. It is in the best interest of the utilities along Riverside Drive as well as the environment for this requirement, as most of these properties are in the Shoreland District. Properties annexed into the city that are not currently connected to services should be taxed at the Rural Service District rate as recommended by staff. So with that, staff recommends initiating the orderly annexation process for a portion of Riverside Drive as depicted in the proposed annexation map. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Does anybody have questions for Mr. Kramvik? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I have a couple. Why are you recommending putting them in the rural service district, a district, in my opinion, that shouldn't even exist in the city of Brainerd? What's the rationale by putting them in that?
Again, part of the discussions with the county, I think that did come up. Not being able or not be connected to city services, and then annexing can be difficult at times. I believe that's when the rural service district came about, is through the annexation process on essentially jumping those tax rates from county to city. So it was a recommendation by staff of go through that process. I think through the county and their staff, that was a recommended process as well. So that's where that came about.
Okay, so we invented this ridiculous rural service district because we were trying to beat Baxter to Highway 371 North 30 years ago. We know it was a mistake. We know we shouldn't have done it. I just don't understand. The basis is that they're not hooked up to water and sewer. How are the water and sewer funds in this city financed? Is it levy dollars?
The answer, I think, is no.
The answer is no, and everybody at the table knows it. Nobody's willing to say the answer is no. Water and sewer are funded by user fees, by bills. Why would we cut taxes in half? We're not going to respond to half of the fires. We're not going to respond to half of the police calls. We're not going to lend out half of the library books. We're going to give them the full services of the city if they are next in the city from the levy side. So I don't understand why you're proposing this rural service. I don't understand why it still exists. I thought we almost got rid of it a few years ago, but then those conversations just kind of vaporized and ceased to happen. But I'll just say, I know there is no motion. I support the orderly annexation of properties into the city of Brainerd. I don't support on having some citizens pay 52% of the taxes and expecting all of the other citizens to pay 100% of the taxes. On no logical rationale at all, because it's based on water and sewer, which isn't related to the levy. So that's my thoughts on that, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else have some thoughts? Mr. Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Chairman Johnson on the zoning, and I also believe that we would need to, and I support the motion, but I also believe we would need to relook at our connection fee, since we had such a difficult time with the last single property that connected to our sewer and water, coming up with the connection fee. And we just looked at the deferred assessments, and I think PNF should look at the connection fees to make sure they're current and accurate as well for when these people do hook up.
Thank you, Mr. Bevins.
They were never assessed since they weren't in the city.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Bevins. Anyone else? I guess I just want to make sure this is just a recommendation that you want to send into the conversation with the county?
So we've had initial conversations. This would be city council approving staff to move forward with an orderly annexation process. And I think there should be some motion included whether or not the city council is interested in the rural service district or not. So staff would know how to approach the county on that aspect.
Yeah, it sounds like there's strong feelings against the use of the rural services district unless anyone else has arguments for using it. I tend to agree with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Bevins. They're not paying any fees for water or sewer at this time. So until they do that, they're just annexing into the city. I can see how the 52% thing would be maybe trying to coax them to get into the city at a lower rate, but it really doesn't make sense. I'm just a little confused at how the orderly annexation even speeds things up. It says in there that we can't force annexation, but this almost makes it sound like we are forcing annexation. Mr. Kramvik?
So we can't force annexation through utility hookups. It has to go through the orderly annexation process.
Right, but what does
And then
that
at that
mean?
point, once people are annexed, then once they're part of the city, our city code can require them to hook up once their septic fails.
Does the orderly annexation then mean that when the county signs this agreement, that they become annexed immediately or at some certain point in time in the future?
So this would authorize staff to move forward with it. So staff would draft the agreement, and then the city and the county would have to both pass resolutions approving it, and then it would go to a municipal boundary line judge. And then they would conduct a public hearing on both sides of it and then make a determination.
Okay. Guess that sort of clears it up, but this is essentially going towards a court-ordered annexation
It would be.
in the end.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Can you pull up the map again, Sean? So I think the goal here is trying to avoid situations like we had last spring when there are hookups and people have forgotten or didn't know. If we had boundary lines that were a little bit more inclusive of everything that was actually serviced by city product, which is our streets, our pipes, our sewers, our electricity, it does make sense for them to be into the city at some point. I don't know how I feel about a court-ordered annexation, forced annexation, but it sounds like this is the legal route to go. I think I'll support it. I don't expect that won't come without some backlash, but if there is a motion, I think I would support 4. But I do also agree with the rural district being left out of the conversation.
I have a motion when you're ready.
Go ahead.
I would move that we move forward with the orderly annexation in the urban service district corridor, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson. Do we have a second? Looking for a second. And that motion fails for lack of second. Unless we have another motion. Could we send this to PNF in 2 weeks? I'd like to have that conversation at the committee level before we bring it back to council. Thank you. Let's move on. We have 9H. This is a discussion on proposed land transfer of tax forfeited property. Is this Mr. Kramvik?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So Crow Wing County approached city staff about potential land transfer of tax forfeited property next to Evergreen Landing. The parcel is approximately 32 acres with 96% of the parcel located in floodway or flood fringe. Historically, this parcel has had a yearly homeless population with primary habitation occurring in the spring, summer, and fall. With the adoption of Ordinance 1571 prohibiting camping on public property, staff have no concerns with the transfer of ownership to the property. So with that, staff is recommending beginning the process for a land transfer of PID 412-30522 to the city of Brainerd.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Does anybody have any questions of staff?
Question.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm concerned if we accept this property and we have another or more homeless encampments and open-air drug markets pop up on that parcel, does that increase the city's liability or open us up to anything because it's on property owned by the city? Or, because I know we were already spending taxpayer dollars cleaning it up every time we cleared out the open-air drug market, but does it expose us to any risks if we own the land?
Attorney Langle?
Mr. President, Council, it's going to be no different than any other city property. Any park, you're insured for it. To the extent there's any, injury received on that, to the extent you get a claim against you on it, it's going to be treated just like any other city property.
And now that it's county-owned, it wouldn't be a claim against us.
That is correct. Unless you've undertaken some action on there that allegedly resulted in an injury. But, yeah, you're right. For the most part, it's a county issue right now.
Thank you, Mr. Langle.
I guess just, it's real, just vague, like, yes, there's a risk, but we are insured. Like, are we going to be policing the homelessness activity a lot more that we have now that we have this ordinance than we were in years past to keep this parcel clean, Chief?
Chief Davis?
Yes, in fact, I just spoke with Mayor Badeau about this just a couple of weeks ago, and a plan in place starting this spring to hopefully prevent it before it even starts.
Because, yeah, there's been fires down there and drug overdoses and all kinds of things that, multiple deaths, and if that's on city property, that's just kind of scary that, but if we're going to be taking better care of it now that we have the tools to do that, I may be fine. I don't know, see what Kevin has to say.
Mr. Yeager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So going kind of with the same mindset, I'm just wondering, what's the motivation? Maybe, James, does somebody have an idea of why the county came to us and said, hey, we got a piece of land you guys might like to have here? So anybody idea where that came from, what the impetus is?
Kramvik?
So it is a tax forfeit parcel. It can be partially used at times, like Evergreen Landing. Obviously, if it's flooding, can't be used. There are some trails. I think historically, it was maybe used by kids before there was kind of the homeless issue in that area. It is somewhat, I guess, not the standard to have this large of a tax forfeit property in the city of Brainerd that maybe wouldn't be owned by the city of Brainerd that is kind of partially usable. I'm sure their thought process of handing it over to the city is because of some of the issues that have been on the property. So,
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Generally, this is a floodplain. There is a trail just off the southern edge, coming from the pump house to the old pump house, which is really close to the shoreline. Having grown up on the edge of that, I know that there was homeless activity back then. There has been for, I don't know, at least 3 decades, that means, maybe more. But it was nowhere near what it was up until, the last couple summers. That being said, pretty much every single spring, that entire area is flooded. You can't do anything with it. I don't know if that puts us at any level of liability. I don't see that being any more of an issue than it was before going forward. What I do know is that some ideas that have come across this property in the past, as far as putting more of a trail or some type of walking path along the river, which has been discussed extensively. Part of the problem was there was county land, state land, city land, all mixed together along that chunk of shoreline. I think just to the west of that little chunk, that territory right there is state land. I can't remember what the one to the left of that is. But as we clean it up and it becomes all city land or a combination of less, it does become less complicated when we do want to do anything. The property that the landing road goes through is, I learned last year that is a park.
Parks, yep.
Yeah, what is it called again?
Not sure. I don't remember. Evergreen Landing, is that right? Yeah, that's right.
Evergreen Landing or Evergreen Landing Park. So technically, that would just sort of be added onto that parkland. I don't know where this discussion is going, if people are for or against it. I don't see it as being a problem, so I guess I'll be for it. But do we have a motion? Do we have more discussion? Mr. Bevins?
I'm going to move that we move forward on this.
Accept it.
Accept it, and I'll explain why if I get a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Bevins and second by Johnson. Go ahead, Mr.
You've
Bevins.
hit it right on the head, Mr. Chair. I see no value or future value. However, having it in our control as legislation changes, and it just recently went through a major change with enforcement of encampments, of overnight encampments, I think it's better to be in the city of Brainerd where we can legislate it as opposed to having it in multiple jurisdictions with less concern for the city of Brainerd than we have. Possibly.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, and I'll support the motion, and I second it, and mostly because Kelly brings up a good point. Would you rather the city of Brainerd ordinances manage that land, or would you rather the state of Minnesota make the decisions for it? And I think everybody here would agree that the city of Brainerd would probably make better decisions on it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else? Mr. Mayor?
You know, we got a couple sweet sledding hills in this town. And I don't know if you know, but that little pokey bit right there that goes down to 8th. I mean, you wanna pick up land speed records.
Yeah.
That's a sledding hill for you.
And stitches.
Well, stitches come with all sledding. That's, you know.
Well, that's how you know it's a good hill.
Yeah, it's a part of it. Have you been to Big Sev?
Absolutely.
This is Big Eighth.
It's got a name. We can find Fert Faust. He has a name for it, so.
Well, when I was a kid living a block away, there was a lot of bumps, cuts, and bruises, lots of blood on that hill. It wasn't white snow. We called it Suicide Hill. But we would still use it. A lot. I didn't know it was county land. But we never sued the county, I'll tell you that. Today's a different era, though. So we might want to put a fence there. I don't know. Nah, let them do it. Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Next, we have a discussion on special assessment policy. Let me see, we have Mr. Havigorst?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. At the last council meeting, we were talking about this project. We had a public hearing, and one gentleman came up and indicated that his cul-de-sac may have been wrongly assessed. But again, our assessment policy, nothing is ever perfect in construction, and we have to go by our assessment policy. And this equally distributes this on every project. And we are, unanimous in this with our staff that we would not want to change our policy regarding this. Now, if the council would like, the gentleman indicated that straightaway area be assessed as a side assessment. We are open to that, but we definitely don't want to redo our assessment policy. And with that, with all assessments, we will be coming forth in a later date just on our franchise fees, which would remove a special assessments altogether. Wouldn't that be a nice day? But anyway, that's a totally different topic. But again, that's our recommendation is just keep the policy. If the council would like to use that caveat of that straight assessment, that's totally fine. But again, we would not want to redo our assessment policy. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Habigorst. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Habigorst or staff?
Yes, I have a question. As it says here in the staff write-up, that gentleman provided a little bit of a unique situation with the segmented portion of the cul-de-sac. So, we kind of spoke about this, and I would be in favor of staff's recommendation to keep the policy as is, but entertain considering that one of those segments, the shorter segment, to be the side yard.
Mr. Erickson? Mr. Bedell?
Yeah, I second that notion that, I appreciate it when people come in and present stuff like that to us, because we don't always see those things. And in looking at it, to me, that looks like a side yard. Whether or not it's on a curve or not, there's a segment that looks like a straight road, and if it was any other type of angled You know, we'd call that a side yard, but because it's got a slight slope to it, it felt like a reasonable request by a citizen, so.
Thank you, Mr. Rideau. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, and I third that. So if we don't do anything tonight or affirm our assessment policy, is that saying we can't do anything about this one property that was brought up to us last time, or is there something we can do? Because I do think some of it needs to be a side yard. I mean, I just tend to agree with what the citizen brought forward.
If you look at that specific property, the garage driveway is on the straight angle,
Yep.
and the front of the house faces the cul-de-sac. So to me, it makes sense where the straight edge is his side yard. To me, that makes sense. I think it's a fair assessment. It looks like a corner to me. We're talking about corner lots, we're talking about cul-de-sacs. It looks like the corner of the cul-de-sac to me. So I think it's just one of those things where staff can take a look at it. And are you looking for a motion on specific things like that, Mr. Dean?
What we can do is later on after the project, when we bring prepared rolls, we can bring specifics like this based on this discussion as options for the council to consider. And you can make motions on one-offs like this and make determinations on that. But at this point, we're really too preliminary at this point at this junction of the project. So we're really just looking for direction on the policy.
Yeah, if we still have leeway, I don't think.
Mr. Bevins?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. It looks, if I'm recalling the argument, the front should be on Pineview. That's the shorter section. Yes? That's where the driveway enters. From Mr. Forrest's point of view.
Right.
The front should be and I would argue if you stand on the Pineview Street and look up the driveway, you're looking at the front of his house. You can't even see the house from the cul-de-sac, hardly. So, and his complaint was the linear foot on the cul-de-sac, if that's his front yard assessment, is extensive compared to the other lineal feet of the other properties on the cul-de-sac. So my recommendation, and I could even make this a motion whether it's requested or not, that property be considered for assessment as a front yard on Pineview, a side yard half price on the cul-de-sac. I believe that's what Mr. Forrest's argument was, is that he's getting incredible high assessment because he has such a long linear footage on the circle where he can't even access the circle.
Sorry, I thought you were.
I know, and I really think that's the direction I would like to give staff, and it seems to contradict what you guys were saying. The shorter section on Pineview, linear foot, should be considered the front 100% assessment. The side yard half price assessment should be the circular lengthy. That's my clarification.
What you're saying is what I thought.
Yeah.
So the only reason I said it the other way was because I remember him saying that the opposite way. If we go back and watch the tape, but I wish he was here right now because he could answer that question. But I thought he was explaining it the way that I just said it earlier. So maybe we'd have to look back.
How about this? I'd like to try a motion that this property be assessed in the most favorable way for Mr. Forrest.
I like it.
Second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Johnson. This has nothing to do with the discussion point other than the single property here. But is there any other discussion on this motion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. As far as the discussion on the special assessment policy, I think I tend to agree with staff if anybody thinks differently.
I think it should be left the same.
Left the same, then we don't need a motion.
This is strictly, well, I would move. Well, I just have one more comment on this. This is just a consideration. It's not a change in policy. It's just a clarification as to which is the front and which is the side. I move that the assessment policy be kept as is.
Second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Stunek. Mr. Bedeau?
Yeah, I think the problem with the cul-de-sacs is all the cul-de-sacs are going to be different. This is different than the next cul-de-sac down the road versus the next one. I think having the policy the way that it is allows us some movement in that, but I don't think you can just say every cul-de-sac is exactly the same, so.
Thank you, Mr. Bedeau. Anyone else? All right, hearing none more, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Next, moving on to staff reports. Starting off, as usual, with Tony Gage. Chief Davis,
Nothing to add, thank you.
Sean Strong.
Nothing tonight.
We have Mike Avagors, Public Works.
Yes, Mr. President, I have three things. One, just a huge shout out to our city engineer, Jesse. He acquired a $1 million grant for a future project, and that project isn't until '29, but just a huge shout out to him and all the work that it takes to do a grant. It's not easy, it's very detail oriented, so a huge shout out to Jesse, so thank you. And then also, we have the public survey. We're asking the public to do a public survey to just gain their knowledge and their opinion of Brainerd and all of our different projects that we have going on. So they can go to our Facebook page, scan that QR code, and we just are looking for everyone's input. We're encouraged to do that. My last one is our skating party that we held last weekend, and we had over 160 people participating in that. We had Dunmeyer's, all just a great sponsors reporting to that and just helping us out. Dunmeyer's, the Salvation Army, Knotty Pine, and just a list of them. And so it was really great for staff to get out there and do a great event. So that's the end of my report, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Habegorst. Mr. Kramvik.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just wanted to give an update on the next Planning Commission meeting, which will be tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Number of items Planning Commission will be discussing, considering a preliminary plat request for St. Francis Church, consider rezoning and zoning text amendment for Paradigm Auto, consider conditional use permit and variance for Sweet Properties LLC for 2 apartments kind of next to the post office here. And then considering a preliminary and final plat for 3 Pete LLC on 15770 Delwood Drive. Also continued discussions on data center ordinance, and then we'll be reviewing the Planning Commission yearly itinerary.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Attorney Langle.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Chris Schubert, HR. Chris Evans, BPU. Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Oh, man, hallelujah. What? Yeah.
Eric Charpentier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to have a quick update as we talk about grants. Minnesota Housing will be opening a Greater Minnesota Housing Infrastructure Grant, likely at the end of the first quarter of this year. The HRA is interested in working with the city to potentially apply for that grant. The funds can be used to cover up to 50% of capital costs for sewers, water supply systems, utility extensions, and streets. And we are looking at that specifically in support of a project we're working on in Brainerd Oaks for Outlot F and Outlot E in trying to get some units built out there. Nothing imminent yet, but wanted to get it on your radar. I will be bringing this back at some point once the grant is released so we can have a little bit more detail for the council. But certainly looking forward to hopefully securing some funding in support of that project.
Thank you, Mr. Charpentier. Administrator Broyles.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really quick, we're in the midst of annual performance reviews, myself included. I hit my 1-year anniversary here in a couple weeks. I'll have my inputs to HR Director Schubert within the next 24 hours. They're just about done. Then she'll work her magic, somehow get it before all of you. However we did it at our 6th month, it was open or closed. However we did it back then, I'm certainly fine with the same process unless council wants something otherwise. But I'll have my comments to her within 24 hours. She'll have them to you, and hoping to get that on the agenda on the first meeting in March for my annual reviews. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Broyles. Now on to the Honorable Mayor Bedeau.
The Honorable indeed. Well, first of all, check minus to Mike O'Day for the execution tonight. It was poor for a little bit there. We
got through it,
but your gavel game remains strong, but there are some things we can work on. Just making notes for you. Want to keep you on track. Secondary, I just want to say, I don't know how many of you in our wonderful city partook, but Valentine's Day was this last Friday. And I had a wonderful opportunity to go to the local 218 and enjoy an excellent meal there. Very hoppin' place on Valentine's Day. So I just want to say shout out to all the couples that got to go partake in beautiful meals in our area. And they also had a magician that was there. I do not partake in the dark arts, so let's just make sure that the notes and the minutes reflect that. So I do not partake. Lastly, I just want to say that, and this is a reminder to the public, a lot of times when we make decisions up here, the council makes the decision that they think is the best. I want to remind the public that when you go on Facebook and you like to drag us through the mud, it doesn't do you the good that you think it does. So I'm just going to make that reminder again, that if you're going to come with requests on a yearly basis, it's not a great idea to drag people through the mud. So I'm just going to make that nice, calm reminder to people. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move on to council member reports. Let's start with Kevin Stunek.
I have nothing.
Sure?
Positive.
Okay. Mr. Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Wednesday, I attended the Northside Residents Association. It was packed, or to quote the mayor, a hoppin' place. Now, it was held at Five Rocks, and that might have had something to do with it. But we did get a lot done, at least in the first half hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bevins. Mr. Yeager?
Yes. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be my monthly kind of airport commission update here. I'll be doing these in the city council meeting following the prior airport commission. So we had our airport commission met last Thursday. I'm just going to give you kind of the basic high points. The very first piece of news was very, very sad to hear. We are losing our deputy director out there. Her name is Cassandra Loftus. She has been fantastic, just a tremendous asset to our airport out there. She's going to be exploring some options at another airport south of Brainerd, and we will be looking to do our very best to replace a person of the absolute highest integrity and performance level out there. So very disappointing news to be losing her. We do certainly wish her the best. Also, Mr. Barrows at the county and I are the newly formed personnel and finance portion of the airport commission out there, and him and I have begun discussions to kind of begin looking at the personnel and obviously the finance side of things out there. So more to come on that. And finally, I will say that in our last meeting, we received our final 2025 budget. That budget that was handed out to the airport commission landed like a hammer. Because it definitely has some concerning news in that budget. And I'll just give you the basic high points. If you'll remember, Mr. Wright approached both the city and the county asking for $225,000 each. The county ended up handing out $166,000 and us at $1,000. But even with the $225,000 ask on both, we would have still be heading into 2025 with a deficit tapping into our savings of about $254,000. With the approved money that went through, we're going to be tapping into our savings for the tune of about $379,000. So this is obviously very concerning. We have an airport that has tremendous asset and value to our community out there. We have the absolute amazing facility out there, but tapping into our savings for that kind of money in just 2025 alone is deeply concerning, and the commission is taking this very, very seriously. So more to come on that, but definitely we'll be looking at some things to change. Other than that, thank you very much. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Chairman Erickson.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to add except that I'm looking forward to the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow night, as well as representing the city at the Region 5 Commission meeting next week, Thursday the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Chairman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two items. One, the EDA had a special meeting last week where we approved a change in the development agreement with the block matrix. So they're expanding the scope of what they're developing out there by a little bit, and it's going to add, I believe, 3.74 decibels at the 20-yard listening range. But it was approved, and they are planning on building this summer. And then secondly, I received a call from a concerned citizen about the south side of the Holiday gas station here downtown. And they noticed that a lot of people, when the on-street parking spots are taken, people will just cruise up off the street and just cruise up and park on the sidewalk to go into Holiday. And, you know, the concern is multiple-fold. I mean, it's illegal to park on sidewalks in the city already, right? But since it's so quick in and out to Holiday, we can't expect the police department to be able to respond to calls to that. But secondly, when the on-street spots are taken, you're blocking the view of the actual sidewalk that you're just tearing into. And it's a block from our high school. There's a lot of kids who walk there after school, during school, all throughout the day. There is a lot of foot traffic and our community's youth foot traffic on that sidewalk. So, you know, he suggested that perhaps we look at putting up a couple of bollards on each side in the public right-of-way there to prevent automobile traffic. So I would like to see this on a personnel and finance or safety and public works, wherever it's most appropriate, just to look at the feasibility on if we can. Hey, look, nobody's on the sidewalk in that. Impressive. But just to look at the costs of what a couple of bollards would be, and if we can feasibly do that while maintaining ADA accessibility and all that here on an agenda and for an upcoming meeting, I'd really like to see that.
It sounds like a good item to start at Safety and Public Works.
Yeah. I believe there is a bollard on the far westerly side, a little bit further down, actually.
I think there's a bollard protecting the building on one of the corners.
Off the alley, yeah, protect.
Yep. But yeah, that's something to explore, see what the cost would be. It's obviously going to be safer if we did that. So, good one for SPW.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all, Mr.
That's
Johnson?
it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Couple things I wanted to say. Sorry to all the kids out there that didn't get to go to school on Monday or Tuesday. I know they were all very sad about it. My daughter was, for sure. She can't wait to go back tomorrow. But I want to say a big congratulations to the Brainerd Kicksters for winning high kick state championship for the second year in a row. That's pretty huge. I think they were 20 years out from their previous one, or maybe a little bit longer. So coming back and beating some of those teams that had been winning for so long, it's a really big deal. I believe that the Brainerd Dance Line State Tournament is one of the top 3 state tournaments of all sports. I don't know if that's a rumor. Maybe somebody needs to fact check me, but it's like Minnesota State hockey, Texas football, and Minnesota Dance Line.
Your wife tell you that?
Yeah.
I saw it on the internet.
What a dance
I know
dad.
it's right.
What a dance dad.
Anyway, that's all for me. Thanks everybody for putting up with me again. So it's 8:47, but we are actually looking to adjourn to a closed session. This is a closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3C3 to discuss counteroffer for temporary and permanent easement. Do I have a motion?
So move. Erickson.
Motion by Erickson, second by Bevins. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes. We can now adjourn. Let's meet back in here at